And time now for an in-depth look at the market news on this Friday afternoon. And for that, I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, global strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me today.
So the U.S. and Iran backing off from the brink of war, and the Chinese Vice Premier set to visit the U.S. to sign the first phase of a trade deal next week. U.S. stocks have risen to new all-time highs again. What's the story there?
Yes, as you said, China's Vice Premier Liu He, the head of country's negotiating team in trade talks with the United States, will sign a phase one deal in Washington, D.C. next week. He will visit the U.S. Capitol from January 13th to 15th. And the negotiating team from both sides remain in close communication on the particular arrangement of the signing. This is the first Chinese confirmation that the deal would be signed after U.S. President Donald Trump said that this will happen on December 31st. The signing will be on the January 15th, and Liu will travel with the title of the Politburo member, Vice Premier and top trade negotiator. And there's no mentioning of whether it will be, in terms of actual details of that signing. But in any case, we think that this is definitely positive news. With the phase one signing, we think that the needed 5G penetration ratio will be rising rapidly on both countries. And the advancement in terms of these fourth industrial revolutions industries would be quite aggressive into the future. Because of that, we think that most of the share prices are moving accordingly. We've been recommending that we need to buy the growth stock rather than value stock. We think that a lot of these tech names and fourth industrial revolution names will have additional leg up in the future.
Well, here in Korea, the Kospi also up for a second day in a row. Tell us about the domestic markets.
Sure. As you said, Kospi is up quite strongly again. After yesterday's 1.5% for Kospi and 3.5% for Kosdaq. Today, Kospi is up again another 0.9%. Kosdaq is up another 1.04%. This is continuation of the rise after the option maturing date yesterday. We think that this was triggered by the Samsung Electronics numbers. The fourth quarter numbers came in, and it was coming in at much stronger than expected of operating profits. It came in at 7.1 trillion won versus 6.6 trillion won operating profit estimations. Clearly, with the Samsung showing good numbers, most of the other industries would show also some rising trend in terms of the earnings. We do expect some improvement in terms of dividend payout ratio as well, and improvement in corporate governance as well. So if that's the case, then Kospi should be not a laggard to the global market as it did last year. This year, we think that the Kospi would probably rise accordingly to the global equity market.
All right. Well, meanwhile, the Korean currency has weakened a bit, or strengthened rather, or it did weaken because of the tensions between Iran and the U.S., and now it's regained some of that strength, about 11.60 to the dollar now. What's your near-term outlook for the Korean won and for international oil prices, which were also briefly affected?
Sure. As for Korean won, we've been saying that it will be a trend in a box range. We were thinking that it would be somewhere between 11.50 to 11.70 range trading. The reason for that is because very much of the stable economic growth rate relative similar to the U.S., around 2% territories. And also we will see additional boosting measure to boost the economic growth rate. So if that's the case, then yes, maybe that appreciation could have a little bit more leg. But nevertheless, overall growth rate is not picking up to the very strong numbers. Overall growth rate will be anywhere between 2 to 2.5% for GDP. If that's the case, then once again, Korean won should be stabilizing around 11.50 to 11.70 range. As for the oil price, we've been saying that the oil price will rise quite significantly to as high as $65. And we've been saying that you need to take profits at 65. And actually, the prices come down right after it hit the 65 plus. Now it's back down to below 60. At this kind of prices, we don't think, though, need to sell more because of the economic growth rate that we're seeing global scale, and maybe there is a recovery coming through. If that's the case, then oil price should remain at quite reasonable, which will be somewhere in between $60 to $65 range trading as well.
Got it. All right, Mr. Yu, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, and have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. Have a good weekend.